Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Owen SK with us today. He's the director at Rhodes Business School. He's also the chairman at GBS Mutual Bank and non-executive director at Good Governance Academy. We're going to talk about governance, one of his favorite topic, and most specifically today, Rhodes Business School, which is a big school in Eastern Cape, basically, 40K alumni, according to the LinkedIn page. So it's going to be a fun one. This podcast is presented to you by podpire.com. If you want to start or scale your podcast, go to podpire.com. Owen, welcome to the podcast. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thanks, Charles, and thanks for the opportunity. And as we say from the Eastern Cape of South Africa, Mweni, which is a greeting, isitosa. So I'm the director, as you mentioned, of Rhodes Business School, and our essence is leadership for sustainability. And our MBA is very much around how you make your money as opposed to how much money you make. And that's really what drives my thinking.
How did you first get the position? I believe it was more than a decade ago.
Yeah, that's correct. So I'm an alum of Rhodes University. I'm very passionate about it. I started after I'd finished my MBA. I went into consulting. Then I worked for my father-in-law, in fact, in industry in Zimbabwe, and then we moved back down to South Africa, and an opportunity came up to do some teaching at the university there, and then I realized that was my passion. So happily to go into academia, spent some time working for a UN agency, the International Trade Center, which took me to many countries around the world, and the focus was around helping countries improve their national competitiveness at a policy level, particularly small enterprises to get them into global value chains. And after that, I was encouraged to apply for the post at Rhodes Business School, and I was very excited to be given the opportunity, and it was great to come back to my alma mater.
Very nice. And in these 14 years, what have you seen change in the school? And are you on paths in terms of reaching your growth goals?
Yeah, Charles, I think that early on, similar to what you're doing here, we engaged with the CEO of a company around sustainability because I had been interviewed on the radio, and I made the point that many companies had not got it in terms of the sustainability and importance of that. And interestingly enough, the CEO managed to get hold of me somehow, and he said, no, you're not quite right here. We need to speak about this. So we duly met, and he agreed to profile the company. And in there, he made the statement. So we treated it as a case study. We followed him around, and the question was asked, does the sustainability journey ever end? And he said when they started it, they thought it might have a start and an end point. But the more they went along the journey, the more they realized more that had to be done. And I've always been inspired by that. And he acknowledged that in going down the sustainability road, it changed their whole way of thinking, the business model, the way that they conducted business. And I'm pleased to say that since we've started that journey and the message that we've tried to put out, it's very different today. It's a whole way of doing business. It permeates through every aspect, and we believe that business still has the opportunity to be the most powerful change makers of what needs to be done.
And where does Rhodes stand in terms of quality of education via other players out there? Are you top pick in terms of schools that an ambitious business student would potentially pick? Who's your competitors, and how do you make sure to stand near the top?
Look, it's a very difficult question because to answer in the sense that we are the smallest university in South Africa, and our location, we are in a rural town, and often getting the profile out there is challenging because our big competitors are in the bigger areas like Johannesburg or Cape Town. And when we're having to compete against beautiful Cape Town, the Table Mountain, the vineyards and the wine farms, or Johannesburg, which is the economic hub of South Africa, we have to really make a compelling case. But so what we've always done is this focus on sustainability. And in fact, that already started with my predecessor. And I think that people acknowledge that we're absolutely authentic around that. So we don't really participate in rankings because what we find is that it tends to favor the bigger schools. And so it's really about the value proposition as to why sustainability should be everybody's business, because it's good business to do that. And I think we've been quite successful in getting that message out there. I think the other thing that has changed is that when we started this journey before I was director, what we found was happening is that we were attracting environmental managers who wanted to learn about business. So you might have come from a science background and you wanted to learn about business because you may have been appointed as a sustainability person in an organization. What we quickly realized then is that it wasn't just about attracting scientists who wanted to learn about business, because sustainability is everybody's business. So whether you're an accountant, a lawyer, a teacher, we really need to embed and integrate this full concept of what sustainability means.
And what does sustainability means to you? Because me, when I think of sustainability, I think about the environment first, but I'd love for my brain to think in terms of scalability and long-term wealth for everyone involved in one ecosystem.
Yeah, Charles, look, there's still, I mean, I can't say that everybody has got behind it, but certainly we can, on the one hand, argue there's a moral case. For instance, is it right to waste water? Well, absolutely not. Water is a very precious resource. The air that we breathe, we need to make sure that future generations are able to sustain themselves. And the argument goes that we don't own the planet today, we're renting it from future generations. But often what happens in sustainability is that it's brought down to simply being about the environment. But social capital is very important. We still live in a world where there's a lot of inequality and inequity. In relation to the intellectual capital, we've got big challenges facing us, from climate change to artificial intelligence. And if you are a board member of a company, you have to be sure that you're managing the risks. So if it ends up that, like, for example, you have a big oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, that results in the destruction of value. We can't afford to have these kinds of things happening. We can't afford to continue to be in a situation where human beings are in conflict. It's not preserving what we need to preserve for future generations. So it's not about robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not about certain stakeholders getting preference over others. It's really about ensuring that our companies and organizations are outstanding corporate citizens that really create fantastic customer service. They attract talented people that want to work there. We have entrepreneurs who really get up every day because they're motivated and fired up to be the change that's ultimately going to create an environment for all of us to thrive on this planet. And I think that often people say that we can all very well go to Mars, but we haven't sorted out Earth yet. So let's change that. And at the end, sure, it's very exciting to go and live on Mars, but that's not going to save a whole lot of people and generations down the line.
I believe in accountability for sure, truth, and yeah, doing what's optimal for most, sort of utilitarian philosophy, Jeremy Bentham. What happened at OpenAI, and have you studied yeah, the government's issue that happened at that company?
Yes, and I think what was really interesting for me about that is that when the CEO was fired, everybody said that he's such an incredible person to work for. And then the next thing, Microsoft said, come and work for us. And then the board itself said that we don't necessarily fit anymore, because my understanding is that when it was originally set up, its mandate was more about doing the change and less about the money. But in the final analysis, we need to have financial capital to sustain us. So again, the message here is that it's not about saying that money is a bad word or a dirty word. Money is an essential capital that we need to have in order to make sure that all the other priorities that we need to address are done. So OpenAI it's an amazing story, but what we also know with artificial intelligence is that human beings invent things that propel us forward in terms of our own human development, but there's always going to be consequences, and there'll always be some people who have an ulterior motive around that. And that's where I agree with you. Accountability is incredibly important. And from a governance point of view, the critical definition of accountability is that it cannot be delegated. Responsibility can be delegated, but accountability cannot. And if you are in a position of being accountable, then you need to step up to that and understand what it means that you cannot delegate that away.
Talking governments sort of outside the business world, what do you have to say when it comes to leader like Trump, Putin, um, and what's happening right now, the conflicts that the choice of leadership can bring in this world?
Yeah, Charles, it's a tough question, because I guess what we've seen is that our world has become very polemic, and people definitely take sides. We're seeing that there's a very strong movement towards the right wing. And I guess a lot of that is driven by the fact that people are not happy with the way things have been done before. So if somebody comes along who promotes a particular idea, and often they can get away with rhetoric and bold promises that don't necessarily flow through, then people will seize on that. And a lot of that's driven by, I think, a world of social media. We discovered that elections were influenced because smart bots can follow what you do and give you the kinds of news and information that feeds what it is. So post-truth world, where even the whole fundamental tenet of what truth means is being questioned. And I think that the challenge around that is, how do we create awareness so that all of us can make informed decisions, that we don't jump to conclusions, that we all of us promote a healthy skepticism. So in the end, when you go and place your tick in the box, you're at least making the best informed decision that you can, that those politicians and those leaders are there because they are to serve the citizens of the country. It's not the other way around. And if we don't create this inclusive world where we can take everybody with us, then we're going to have those unintended consequences. So, one of the things that I really focus on in governance is paradox. Paradox is this ability to keep two opposing ideas in your head at the same time and still function. And one of the Voltaire, the famous French philosopher, he once said that I do not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. I don't think that we can necessarily disagree with that, but what we're seeing in the world today is that some people themselves exploit that. So if you promote hate, if you promote discrimination, how does one defend somebody's right to say those things if it encroaches on our human rights? And that's a very, very difficult. So authentic leadership, servant leadership, accountability is really important. But I think that some people would argue that these leaders don't necessarily inspire the kind of progress that we need. And therefore, it goes back to us really questioning the fundamentals of who these leaders are and ultimately where they're going to take us.
Right. Propaganda slash marketing. That's been my career path. You know, my dad's a marketing consultant too, and I think it can be taken too far. The why is that you can influence humans with your words, right? You can put the stats that you want in front of them, um, polarizing and challenging an assumption and interrupting patterns like I do in multiple of my businesses. It pays off. Why? Because if I send you a cold email, that headline is different and that content is different, you're going to be like, oh, this guy's different. He's not like the others. The same when you elect a politician, right? He's not like the other politician before. This politician didn't bring anything. We're confident he's going to bring something new. The thing is, power and persuasion is incredibly pervasive. It's really
Yes.
hard to not think that you're the shit when you're making incredible amounts of money and when you're influencing thousands, if not millions, at the same time. So I think that first, the electoral process is a problem. We're not going to talk about this today, but I think that these leaders, once they got elected, um, theoretically they should stop the propaganda, right, and really focus on executing the work. But the thing with Trump and Putin, their propaganda slash marketing machines, they just don't stop, and they're in for themselves, which is pretty much the opposite of what a good leader should do. Um, is marketing still to be used at first and be lightened after that so that one can focus mostly on delivering the product? As a politician, is that where it should go? And what are the limits of marketing in this modern age?
Well, so the core tenet of marketing is, I guess, to fundamentally address the needs and wants of citizens and to render the best customer service that you can in an absolutely authentic way. And I think that we've seen over the years there have been some remarkable companies that have stood true to that. Now, I really, a person that I really, and as many people do, have the utmost respect for, is Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway. And I think if you read the latest Berkshire Hathaway newsletter, there's some really incredible gems in there. And one has to question, how is it that that company has done as it's done over all the years? And part of that is we trust him and his team around him to always be doing things for all of the right reasons. If one considers uh, other companies that really are true in terms of their marketing and their commitment, I think Apple Computers has kind of shifted the needle a lot, and the challenge around that is that if Steve Jobs had come and asked the average person, what is your need and want, we're actually not able to articulate that. So that kind of goes against what marketing says. Go and ask the consumer, and we'll tell you what we need and we want. But what we've also seen is that Apple itself has come under pressure recently and been fined for being seen to be anti-competitive. And this again for me is the paradox of governance. So you've got a company like Apple, which is absolutely driven by the quest to be the best quality that you can, to be the most innovative. But then you have the regulators and other sectors of society coming along and saying, hey, no, we can't put our app on your platform, or you're restricting us in relation to that. So one always hopes that it's always done for the right reasons. And whether you're a regulator, whether you are a company, whether you are an NGO, one has to bring into their what is authentic from governance. And I think that's where your accountability comes in. So marketing comes with huge responsibility, absolutely. And I think that if we use subterfuge, we lie, we try to not deal with the issues that we have to deal with. On the other side, social media, I think today will out you. I think that we will see that there's enough people out there that are questioning and challenging. And I guess Apple will have its day, and then society will then determine whether they should continue to have their license to operate.
What do you think of Elon Musk's quote unquote PR strategy?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that being a South African myself, we claim Elon Musk as our own. He grew up in South Africa and then left, went I think to Canada and ended up in the US. And certainly, if one considers what he's done, on the one hand, it's truly remarkable. But I think some people are beginning to question what his real motive is now, because on the one hand, this quest to have clean energy, advance human progress, put people on Mars, Tesla, etc., is truly a remarkable success story. But then he acquires X, or Twitter changed the name to X, and part of his motive seems to be as controversial as possible in order to draw traffic to X. And all the filters that have been removed under the guise that this is free speech. And that's the issue that I raised earlier. So, Voltaire said, I'll defend your right to say it, but if it now encroaches on hate and often you look on X and you just see that it's just become a space for people to just really insult each other, say the most horrendous things that we would never probably say if we were in a face-to-face environment. One has to really question whether X is actually allowing us to progress in the world. Mark Twain, I guess it's a bit regrettable that he used the word stupid, but he once said, never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level, and then they will smash you with the experience. So the more you try to convince people, the worse it actually gets. And this is where we cannot discount the importance of education, of critical thinking. And countries like Finland are doing remarkable things at getting young people to think critically. So we must be agnostic about certain things. We must have a healthy skepticism. We mustn't just take things at face value. And just because something pops up in your Instagram or Facebook, or you see something on X, doesn't mean that we must react to it instantaneously. And I hope that as we go into the AI generation now, that people are not seeing this as a quick thing. Just type your question into AI, it gives you an answer, and we must just accept what it says. So we've still got a long way to go in that regard.
I feel the most affected people by that were the boomers. Most of them still think that news is a reliable source of information, and then some of them make the switch to Facebook and TikTok, and then like I get sent these articles on my WhatsApp every now and then, and like, yo, this is not science, like this is probably not true. Like, why don't you validate that information with other engines?
Yes.
Just yesterday I was speaking with a friend, and he's anti chat GPT, and the most he's made in 4 years in his business is losing 100K. I'm like, why don't you use an AI to um, keep you in check, and brainstorm and various AIs? And then he's like, I don't believe in AI. I think it's going to destroy everything. So I think people should be a bit more open minded, a bit more scientific as well. It's easy to get lost in woo woo nowadays, and people use woo woo to convince you of snake oil stuff. And when you lose touch with reality and sort of science, it's where you weave off in a direction you generally don't want to go. Now, I think one can also go like too far in one scientific direction, and the best people that do that usually are scientists. Some of them are God believing people, ironically, but that's for another day. Um, And yeah, they're a bit too skeptic. And when you talk to them, they're always on the negative side. And it's a bit annoying sometimes to talk to people that really doubt everything. So how do you make sure to stay skeptic in a healthy manner in which you don't always come off as negative? Because as we know, building a business with someone that's always doubting everything is pretty much impossible. And being default positive in business is good. So what's the equilibrium here between over skepticism and being rationally positive to scale a business?
Yeah. So you raise a fundamental question, and in my experience, the entrepreneurs that I've come across always clear about what their purpose is and what drives them, and they're passionate about it. At the same time, even though they may be pursuing this from their innate desire to do that, they still surround themselves with good people that they can rely on. I maintain that the most important module that we teach in our MBA program is actually people management, because without people, you can't do anything. We can debate about climate change and making financial returns till the cows come home. But if you don't have the right people in place, and you don't create that opportunity to collaborate and engage with each other about dignity and respect, and then take the good of what Voltaire was saying, then I think all of the unintended consequences that you are talking about. So I still believe that there's a place in business for a handshake. We don't have to have all these written contracts. I really like the work of Cass Sunstein about sludge. It's what I read the other day, and I might not have the figures exactly correct, but somebody's worked out that the sludge factor, which is all of the things that impede our ability to operate effectively and efficiently in the world today, is something like 7% of global gross domestic product. So if we can find ways to eliminate the sludge, now then that means that the bureaucracy that's designed to impede and constrain is removed, that we can accelerate decision making, provide better health care, for us to engage with mutual respect with each other. We can really project forward in terms of what we want to do. And I think that whether you're a very small business entrepreneur, whether you're a big business, apply those kinds of philosophies. Always be looking to see, how can we be authentic, so that we're going to render great service, that we're going to mobilize a great team, that we're going to do things that really make a difference in people's lives. That's what's going to get us out of bed every morning. And then we know our purpose.
There you go. Well, thank you, Owen. Where can people find out more about you?
So our business school, just Google Rhodes Business School South Africa, and it'll come up. And my email address is o.skae@ru.ac.za. But Charles, thanks very much for the opportunity, and let's look forward to a world of less sludge. I think that's really what we're striving for here.